Hi Disney fans, welcome to The Binger. One of the few things we can all count on in life is change. And sometimes that applies to beloved Disney characters too. Over the past decade, there are certain characters who have shown significant growth. These characters are leaving the 2010s with different personalities and perspectives than when they started the decade. In this video, we're talking about the 10 characters who have changed the most in the last 10 years. Whether we discovered these changes through a sequel, origin story, or cameo, we believe each of these characters are leaving the decade more evolved and enlightened. Before we start, keep in mind there are some big spoilers for several Disney movies ahead. When we first met Dory in 2003's Finding Nemo, we learned she had short-term memory loss. Even with her inability to remember what she was doing or why, her innocence and positivity made her instantly endearing. Dory helped Marlin find his wayward son, and in the process, she found fish she could rely on. It wasn't until 2016's follow-up Finding Dory, though, that we discovered Dory's backstory. In the course of that film, we learned about her childhood and how she got lost in the first place. And we also found out that Dory was a lot more resourceful than she was often given credit for. Despite her limitations, Dory developed strategies for dealing with her memory issues. As a result, she learned she could be an independent fish who didn't require constant supervision. Finding Dory proved the kind-hearted Blue Tang was just fine as she is. A fact that was exemplified by the change in Dory's motto. In Finding Nemo, she would tell herself to just keep swimming, but in Finding Dory, she asked herself, what would Dory do? In 2012, Wreck-It Ralph introduced us to a completely unexpected character. Instead of a princess or a superhero, Ralph was the villain of the video game Fix-It Felix. And his whole life was defined by that role. Ralph's job was to be the bad guy, but after putting in a full day's work, no one could separate him from what he did. The civilians in his game adored Fix-It Felix, but were terrified of Ralph. And after years of rejection, Ralph finally had enough. He went on a quest to become a hero that led him to his new best friend, Vanellope von Schweetz, a character from a racing game. Vanellope's friendship changed Ralph's life, but by 2018's Ralph Breaks the Internet, she was restless and looking for something more than her familiar game. And when the pair traveled to the internet, Vanellope's enthusiasm for its high speeds caused Ralph to fear he would lose her. This didn't exactly bring out the best in Ralph. He tried to help her, but often his actions had more to do with keeping her with him than supporting what she wanted. Eventually, though, Ralph saw the error of his ways and learned to let go. And even though life changed, he and Vanellope stayed friends. Disney Pixar fans were thrilled when The Incredibles came out in 2004. The movie introduced us to a world where superheroes really do exist, and the story centered on a whole family of them. The Bars were trying to act like a normal family. Superheroing was illegal after all. But in reality, both parents and 2 out of 3 of their children had superpowers. One of those kids was Violet, the Par's eldest daughter. She had the power to turn invisible, and when we first met her, that power seemed like an extension of her personality. In her teenage life, teenage Violet hid behind her hair as if she was hoping no one would notice her. By the end of the first movie, though, she and her family used their powers to fight evil in a way that instilled her with more confidence, and the boys she liked even asked her out. Even though The Incredibles 2, which came out in 2018, picked up only a short time later, Violet was already more mature. When her father gets overwhelmed by parenting duties, she's there to support and help him. And when her parents are in trouble, it's Violet who leads the charge to rescue them. By the end of the film, Violet's completely embraced all of who she is, both as a girl and a superhero. We first met the lovesick Prince Philip in 1959's Sleeping Beauty. Back then, the prince met Aurora in the woods and instantly fell in love, even though he knew pretty much nothing about her. Still, he took on a thick wall of thorns and an angry fairy in the form of a dragon to get to his true love. And after he woke her up with a kiss, the pair lived happily ever after. Thanks to 2014's Maleficent and the 2019 sequel Maleficent Mistress of Evil, we learned Prince Philip's story wasn't quite so simple. While Philip met Aurora while she was hidden from Maleficent in the woods, he didn't instantly fall in love. In fact, the couple dated for years before Philip proposed in the second Maleficent movie. At that point, Aurora met his parents, and after Philip's mother revealed her true horrible agenda, Aurora worked to thwart her. Fortunately, unlike his mother, Philip wanted peace. He supported Aurora in her fight against his mother and joined in the battle himself. Philip's noble intentions made it clear that he was much more than a fairy tale prince that he was in the original movie. If you don't already subscribe to The Binger, why not take a moment and do it now, and click the bell to make sure you get notifications about new videos. After all, we all know how YouTube can be sometimes. If you're watching this on mobile and you want notifications, check out your YouTube settings. Now let's get back to those Disney characters. Cinderella has been one of Disney's most beloved movies since it was first released in 1950. At its center was the title character, a girl so sweet she barely questioned her stepfamily's abuse, and made friends with mice and birds. Cinderella was rewarded for her kindness in the end, when the prince used the glass slipper she left behind to find and marry her. Yet, while the story had a happy ending, Cinderella has often been accused of being way too passive in her own life. In the 70 years since, though, there's evidence things have changed. In 2018's Ralph Breaks the Internet, the Disney princesses made an extended cameo when Vanellope accidentally breaks into their room. When the princesses realize there's a stranger in their midst, Cinderella is ready to throw down. She breaks that glass slipper that took her away from her evil stepmother and threatens Vanellope with it. Later, she leads the charge to get out of her fancy but constricting ball gown and put on some much more comfy loungewear. If her actions in this appearance are any indication, Cinderella has come a long way since sitting idly by waiting for her prince. In 2006's Cars, famous race car Lightning McQueen learned to slow down a little and appreciate small-town life. But it isn't until 2017's Cars 3 that he learns there's life after racing. Lightning has been a champion for years by the time the threequel rolls around. But in that time, a new crop of race cars has come up, and Lightning is beginning to look a bit rusty. He just can't go as fast as he used to. And by the end of the movie, he realizes he needs to stop fighting the inevitable. Instead, he helps his young trainer fulfill her racing dreams. And even though his life changes because of it, he still finds a way to have purpose and meaning. It's quite an evolution for the uppity speed demon who first came to Radiator Springs. Another character who's gotten older but not necessarily as wise is Olaf the Snowman. Between 2013's Frozen and its 2019 sequel, Olaf has developed a bit of an existential crisis. In fact, confronting any form of change fills him with anxiety. Plus, now that he's been alive for a whopping 3 years, he's noticed there are a lot of things he doesn't know. How to deal with it all? Olaf believes the only thing for it is to grow older, since elderly people like Anna and Elsa seem to know everything. Olaf's expanded worldview makes him a much more philosophical snowman. But then when he realizes his snow is dissipating on the wind, he must accept the ultimate change. Olaf comes out of the experience with his good-natured outlook intact, and he's also acquired a little bit of genuine wisdom along the way. It's hard to believe that we first met Sheriff Woody all the way back in 1995's Toy Story. Since then, advances in computer graphics have significantly improved his looks. But that's not all. Throughout Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, Woody was completely devoted to his child Andy. Yet after Andy grew up and gave Woody and the rest of his toys away to Bonnie, Woody's circumstances changed. In 2019's Toy Story 4, he tried to make life with Bonnie work by championing her needs. In this case, that meant making sure Forky, her new favorite toy, accepted his role in her life. Still, things just weren't the same, and after he reconnected with long-lost love Bo Peep and saw her independent, child-free way of life, Woody decided to stick with her. Woody knew he couldn't recapture the magic he had with Andy, so instead he chose freedom. In the end, just like Andy, Woody had to move on to the next stage of his life. For decades, Maleficent was regarded as perhaps the most purely evil of the Disney villains. After all, in Sleeping Beauty, she cursed a baby because she wasn't invited to the child's christening. Yikes! It wasn't until this decade that Disney chose to set the record straight and fill in Maleficent's backstory over 2 self-titled movies. While cursing Aurora was a terrible act, Maleficent's treatment by Aurora's father were what led to her ire. Nonetheless, Maleficent took care of and came to love Aurora during her childhood. And although she was unable to break her curse, it was Maleficent's kiss that ultimately woke the princess up. The dark fairy definitely has her sharp edges. She can even be ruthless and cruel at times. Yet Maleficent's actions toward Aurora show there's a lot of good in her too. Olaf the Snowman may have come to fear change between Frozen and Frozen 2, but Elsa's evolution is even more surprising. In the first Frozen, Elsa learned to let it go after suppressing her ice magic her entire life. While it looked like this might lead her down the wrong path, ultimately the love of her sister brought her back from the brink. Since then, the two, along with Olaf, Anna's boyfriend Kristoff, and his reindeer Sven have developed a happy family unit. Yet, despite her role as the Queen of Arendelle in Frozen 2, Elsa is unsettled and restless. She longs to go into the unknown to learn the source of her powers. It's a journey of self-discovery, and Elsa will do whatever it takes to find out what she needs to know, even cross an angry ocean and almost lose her life when she freezes. By the end of the movie, Elsa has learned to completely embrace what feels right for her. She's given up her crown and moved into the enchanted forest where she fits right in with the other magical creatures. By accepting all of who she is and where her family came from, Elsa learns to truly be herself. Which of these Disney characters' evolutions did you enjoy finding out about the most? Was there a character who changed a lot in the 2010s that we didn't mention? Tell us all about it in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Binger. Thanks for watching.